Okay, hi, this is the first video for the test, which is taking place Wednesday, November 13th, which is the 12th day of Marcheshvan. This is going to be on the first sugya. We're only going to do little pieces of it. So please pay careful attention so you know what you're responsible for, and hopefully everybody will do great. Okay, we're going to the Gemara at the very beginning of Hey Mabet. I put sheep in a pen and I lock it up correctly. And the animal goes out and causes damage. Patur. I did my job. I did what I was supposed to. And therefore, anything that happens, I'm considered to be ones. It's not what I planned for, and I'm not going to be responsible. But if I did not lock up the gate correctly, and I was a posheya, I was negligent, if it goes and does the average, then I'm going to be responsible because I was negligent. If I had a good fence, but it was broken into at night somehow, it was a good fence and broken into a night, and I had no yada, I had no idea that it happened. Osha patsur listim, or listim came, robbers came, and they were the ones that made the hole in the fence. And the animal goes out and causes damage. Patur. I'm not responsible, and the robbers are not responsible because no one told this animal to go out, no one forced it out, and therefore it's just the bad mazal, the bad luck of the person who's suffered the damage. There's no one that's going to go ahead, and there's no one that's going to pay for it. So the Gemara goes ahead. We're skipping down to the Gemara. Tonu Rabbanan, right beginning over here. What's considered to be adequate locking of the fence? What sort of fence are we talking about? That if I had this sort of fence, I'm good to go. I'm not responsible. But if it's shalokaroi, if it's not a good fence, I'm going to be responsible. What is the baseline? Says the Gemara. If you have a door that really can withstand a regular wind, that's good enough. But if it's a fence that can't even withstand normal wind, that's not adequate. And therefore, if it blows down and what have you, I'm going to be responsible. So Amar of Mani Bar Patish. So comes from Mani Bar Patish, says Man Tana. Who is the Tana of our Mishnah that says Mu'ad, that when something is very usual to happen, Mu'ad means something which is usual to happen, and an animal going out on the loose and eating or trampling something which is very, very common. It's enough to have even a lower level of shmirah. Everyone will agree that if you have a delit, if you have a fence that will stand a normal wind, that's like, okay, that's a shmirah pechutza. And yet it's adequate. So who is the Tana that says that this is an adequate shmirah? And embedded in this question is who would disagree with it and say, that's not adequate. You need to do much, much more. You need a much stronger fence than that. So who is the Tana that says this is adequate? Says Ramani Bapatish, Rav Yehudai. That's only going according to Rav Yehuda. What did Rav Yehuda say? Just now before we learned regarding Keren, regarding an animal, an ox that goes out and gores, which is a different case. There we learned as follows: Kashu ba'alav b'mosira. If the owner of the animal tied it up with a tight leash, and had a good fence, and the animal still goes out and breaks out and damages. Rabbi Meir says the animal never did it before, even if it's done it before, you're always going to be chayav. So we see, according to Rabbi Meir, you have a very, very different level of shmirah. You have it with a tight and on a leash and everything else, yet you're responsible. So he obviously would disagree with our Mishnah that says that as long as you have a delet, a wall, a door that goes stand in normal winds, you're not going to be responsible. Rabbi Meir is a very much higher level. Rabbi Yehuda says regarding Keren, Tam Chayav. Okay, we discussed this. Let's put it on the side now. That if it never happened before, I'm going to be responsible to pay chatzina, it's like half the damage. But we're really interested in the next two words, is buad patur. If this is something that the animal does, and I went ahead and I had it on a leash, I had it on some sort of rope, a mosira, and I locked up the door correctly, patur, I've done my deal. Shenamar, because it says in the pasuk, when am I responsible? If I did not watch it. I did watch it. So according to Rav Yehuda, he says Muad Patur because you have a level of Shmirah which is adequate. So apparently the Tana of our Mishnah is Rav Yehuda, because the same way as by Keren, by goring, he says, as long as you have an adequate Shmirah, you're good to go. And the animal breaks out, that's not your problem. So here also, as long as I have an adequate pen and an adequate delet that's going to stand in Ruach Mitzvah, is going to be enough. So he's the Tana of our Mishnah. Rav Meir apparently would not accept our Mishnah, because when it comes to Keren, Rav Meir has a much, much higher level of demand. And he said, even if you tied it up and you had a good delet, you're going to be chayav, you're going to be obligated if the animal breaks out. So our assumption, says Ramani Bar Patish, also in our case, in our Mishnah, according to Rav Meir, if the animal were to break out of a delet ro'ui, a delet, a door that goes stand the normal wind, the animal, you're going to be responsible. So says the Gemara, I'm skipping. Afilu Tzeiman Rav Meir. Now, our Mishnah could really be going according to Rav Meir. Rav Meir could agree totally to our Mishnah. Shiny Shane Varega, because our Mishnah is talking about Shane, where the animal goes out and eats something else, or tramples. That's different than the case of Keren, of goring. That the Torah, we're not going to go through the Psukim, where it does do, we're not doing that now. Torah miyatab shmiratan. The Torah says that you don't have to have a high level of shmirah. According to what the Gemara now says now, is that the two standards. When it comes to Keren, because it could be dangerous, etc., it's something more unusual. You need to really do a much better job according to Rav Meir. When it comes to Shein Varegel, it happens a lot, but how much can we demand from you? In other words, we want people to raise animals, and you can't say that the animal is never going to cause any damage. And therefore, Shein Varegel, the Torah says, okay, we're just going to demand a Shmirah Pechuta, a lower level of Shmirah. So it's entirely possible that Rav Meir would agree to our Mishnah, even though he disagrees by Keren. Skipping way down over here, says the Gemara Amar Rabba. Right over here, Amar Rabba. Amar Rabba Matnitin Namiteka. You can see in our Mishnah, if you look at it carefully, that there's a difference between Keren on the one hand, where maybe a higher level of Shmirah is needed, and Shein Varegel on the other hand. Tikatanitzah, because our Mishnah makes a big point in saying, Akonet Son Ladir. We're talking about sheep, talking about goats, and things of that nature. Until this point, it was in the Gemara previous to what we learned, the whole topic was shor, always shor, ox. Nitni shor. So if you're going on and talking about Shein Varegel, you should talk about shor as well. Why all of a sudden did the Tanakh feel and said, okay, we're going to be talking about tzon now, no longer shor, talking about tzon. Love mishum da Torah miyatam shmiratan. Isn't it because when it comes to tzon, the Torah does not have such a high level of shmirah? And even if Rav Meir demands a high level of shmirah, that's for sure Keren, but not necessarily in our case for tzon. Love mishum the kan Keren lo k'tiva b'shein v'regel k'tiva. Isn't it because we're not dealing with Keren here, but we're dealing with shein v'regel? And it's very, very possible that there's a different level of shmirah that's required, a much lower level. The Kamash Malan, and the Mishnah tells us the shein v'regel dumu'adamu shmamina, that shein v'regel is so unusual and everything else. We can't demand that the owner lock it up totally all the time. No, we're going to give the owner some slack, and we're going to say the shmirah p'chuta is good enough, and therefore our Mishnah can even be going according to Rav Meir.